In this video, I will tell a surprising and interesting story about how my daily walk on the beach led to an amazing discovery relating to Yellowstone National Park. At least it was an amazing discovery for me, and how it relates to the Oregon coastline. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let me go ahead and proceed with the story. It all began when we drove down to the Curtis Street trailhead for Seal Rock Beach North, the north section of Seal Rock Beach, and we began to proceed south on the beach toward Seal Rock. The most prominent thing about Seal Rock Beach is, of course, the rock that apparently the seals like or rested on because it was convenient. But this video is not about the seals, it's about the rock. Interestingly, it was a windy day, and so in this video some of the audio may not be real clear because I didn't have my wind reduction muffler on the microphone on my GoPro camera. That's enough of that. Initially on our walk, what I noticed was the features of the rock, the prominence of the rock, the way that even though the shoreline had receded, this rock had somehow withstood the fierce storms coming out of the Northwest Pacific year after year for apparently millions of years. Pretty, isn't it?
I mean, all the beaches we've been on, just think about it. I've never seen one like this.
Yeah, it's different. Oh, we've seen a couple in southern Oregon that were pretty rocky, but not just exactly like this.
That's true. I guess that one that we where we were. We actually had our lunch up on the rock.
Yeah. Yeah, that one. Basalt is a igneous type of rock, meaning volcanic, and basalt usually has quite a bit of iron in it, so it's very tough. It can stand up much more strongly and for much longer against the ocean than sedimentary rock. On beaches, we do not normally see things like rocks sticking up, especially offshore. The shoreline can sometimes have rocks, but often they are not the kind of rock that comes out of a volcano.
Even that rock is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's not your everyday rock. It's almost like it was paved there, but you can see it's a natural rock.
think those seagulls are planting something. Look, see the circles, there's some of them there.
Yeah?
It's like when the cowboys would be down at the bottom of the valley, they'd look up and there'd be all these Native Americans on horseback.
With rifles.
With or without, it didn't matter.
Or arrows and bows, for sure.
Just watching. One false move, I'll shoot you with my arrow.
Look at those seagulls soaring around. There's one over there soaring.
That's true.
Jonathan Livingston.
They do have one.
On beaches, we do not normally see rocks sticking up, especially offshore. The shoreline can sometimes have rocks, but often they're not the kind of rock that comes out of a volcano.
Snow.
Yeah, it's
It
nice.
looks like slick rock, but it's not.
Yeah.
Neat color.
Yeah, it is. On beaches, it is normal and customary to see sand, which is a kind of sedimentary rock, which is typically composed of shells of sea creatures such as clams, crabs, or other shelled creatures. So normally these kinds of deposits lie flat on the shoreline, on the beach, in the form of sand. That's the way they are. Here's some more volcanic ejecta. All piled up. And the water wants it to move, but it won't move. The first slide shows my general understanding of plate tectonics, where the Pacific plate is sliding underneath the North American plate, and the scraping of those two plates colliding pushes up the sedimentary debris on the bottom of the ocean, which is usually organic matter, shells, and the sort of things you normally see on a beach, like sand. So I couldn't understand when I got home from our walk why it was that I was seeing basalt, a volcanic ejecta, at Seal Rock. So next I Googled basalt and Seal Rock. Google came up with a scholarly paper by a local woman who was just curious about geology and contacted a few geologists and created a really impressive paper that talks about the basalt and other things in the Seal Rock area and Newport area. I've provided a link below the description for this video where you can download this 89-page paper if you're interested. In the paper, the author spoke of the Columbia River flood basalts, which is the name they gave for one of the largest flows of volcanic lava anywhere on the planet, with flows of totaling somewhere near 85,000 cubic miles spread over many years. But apparently the first 2 million years was when the vast majority of the flow took place. This flow lasted for 10 million years. The next chart is of the seal rock basalt deposit, which is small compared to 58,000 cubic miles. However, it's still a heck of a lot of basalt. You can see on the chart how many miles tall and wide it was. It's a pretty large deposit. Likewise, the next chart of the Yachats basalt deposit was even larger, maybe 3 or 4 times larger. And if you go to Cape Perpetua, you see that there's a lot of rock there. Driving the stretch from Yachats down to Florence gives you a pretty good idea of how much basalt was deposited, and it's a lot. Now I knew that the Columbia River flood basalt was the source of the basalt. I wanted to know a little bit more about the flood basalt. Geologic curiosity got the better of me, so I wanted to learn more. Wikipedia had an article about the Yellowstone hotspot that Google found, which mentioned Columbia River flood basalts, and so I didn't think it had anything to do with it, but I went ahead and looked, and lo and behold, I found this chart which shows that the Yellowstone hotspot, or the source of the volcanic activity in Yellowstone National Park, all came from this traveling hotspot in the upper mantle of the Earth's core, which was moving along with a fissure in the Pacific plate, in particular the Juan de Fuca plate. So based on the Yellowstone hotspot chart showing where the hotspot had been, I calculated the rate of motion of this fissure in the Juan de Fuca plate and determined that it was moving approximately 2 inches per year. And so I was able to calculate position versus history, and in particular when the Columbia River flood basalts had its most active years. And surprisingly, those first 2 million years of the 10 million years that volcanic activity was going was when the Yellowstone hotspot was producing volcanic lava in the area, feeding into the Columbia River flood basalt. In the chart showing the motion of the Yellowstone hotspot, you can see a flat area that is where the hotspot traveled, and it kind of looks like a wrinkled shirt that's had a hot iron dragged across it. Yellowstone National Park people produced some research which is showed in this chart of the quote modern day, in other words the activity in the last 2,100,000 years in the northwest Wyoming site where Yellowstone National Park is currently located. And we see that the Yellowstone hotspot is a huge caldera, being at least 80 miles across. The final chart is a projection based on past motion of the Yellowstone hotspot. If everything stays the same and the fissure stays active, then the chart shows where the Yellowstone hotspot will go to in the next 40 million years, perhaps. Or perhaps the fissure will heal itself and there won't be any more activity. Only time will tell.